This is an effort to teach people how to make croissants. Croissants are absolutely delicious, but they are time consuming to make, and I would suggest that you set aside something like 11, 12, even 13 hours from start to eating, or even a few hours more for the eating. I prefer to use King Arthur flour, which to my mind is the best flour available, but it is a bit pricey, so you may prefer to use something like Pillsbury or Gold Medal or one of the standard store all-purpose flours. Now let's begin by using 1 packet of dry yeast. Fleischmann's is my long-time favorite. And we put that in a small bowl. Now we add a teaspoon of sugar to that, and then add 6 tablespoons of warm water. Not too hot, but a bit warm. 6 tablespoons will do it. And then give it a little stir. I use my finger. And we'll let it set for a few minutes as it dissolves into the water. Now let's move on to the next step. And here I have 3½ cups of all-purpose flour, to which I'm going to add a heaping tablespoon of sugar. Now the recipe calls for 4 teaspoons of sugar, but a heaping tablespoon will do it. And then we also need to add salt to it, and that calls for another tablespoon of salt. Give them a good stir to blend. And we'll wait just a few minutes while the yeast continues to dissolve. We'll be right back. Here is the yeast mixture. You can see that it's bubbly, and that means it's ready to use. So we will add that to the flour and make sure we get it all out. And then we will add 1.5 cups of warmed milk. Not hot milk, but just a bit warm. And 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And make certain you don't use olive oil, because that would give a flavor that you're not looking for. Just regular vegetable oil, 2 tablespoons. And now we move to handling the dough, which we will do any number of times in the next many hours. I find that a wooden spoon works best to mix the liquids and the flour. And just keep stirring it. It'll take a few minutes before it all comes together. Put a little flour on the breadboard. Now let's, using your hands, gather all the dough together. Make a big mound out of it. It's going to be pretty, it's not going to look very attractive quite yet. But let's get it all together into one big mass. You're going to have to clean off your fingers from time to time. And then we're just going to let it sit for 3 or 4 minutes while all the moisture gets spread throughout the dough, throughout the flour evenly. But we'll take 3 minutes to do that. And in the meantime, use that time to clean out your pot that we'll be using again. All right, the dough has now absorbed all the liquids and it's ready to be handled again. But unlike kneading for regular bread, this is a very quick knead, and you're going to need a dough knife or use a spatula with a very firm grip. And then just bring this together with your hands, hit it a few times. You can even toss it up and down. And you probably need to use a little more flour because it gets sticky. And then gather it all up, and note again that this is not a 10-minute knead like you would do with regular bread. We're just going to put it in the pot where it's going to sit and rise for the next 3 to 4 hours. Cover it with a wet towel. And set it aside, and we'll be back in 3 or 4 hours. We've let the dough rise for nearly 4 hours now, and what we're looking for is it to be about 3 times the size we put it in, which it appears that it is. So we'll put a little flour on our board, and we'll take this out. Whoops, still quite moist. We might have to add a little flour to it. A little more flour. And let's do a little bit more kneading of it. And we're going to spread it out into a very large, say, less than a 1/4 inch deep, but we're going to spread it all out. And then fold it like you would a business letter. 1/2 over the top. Put it back in the bowl. We will cover it once again, and this time we're going to put it into the refrigerator and let it rise the second time overnight. We'll be back in the morning. We're back. The dough has been in the refrigerator overnight, and at the low temperature it did not rise very quickly, but it did rise sufficiently. As you can see, it's about double the size that we put it in, and so it's now ready for the magic of the butter. And the thing that makes croissant so delicious is the many layers of butter that's in the dough. Just let this warm up a bit. All right, now to incorporate the butter. It's a rather tedious process, but it's essential. And we're going to use 1/2 pound of butter, 2 sticks. And we have to spread the butter out, and for that we're going to use this fancy rolling pin and bang the butter until it begins to be soft enough to make the schmear. we want to have the butter in long, flat series so that they will fold into the dough. And don't be afraid to use your hands on this, although the fastidious might prefer to use the dough knife. Alright, now we take the dough and we're going to spread it out as thinly as we can. We're looking for maybe something a quarter of an inch thick and spread out. And we might be able to use our rolling pin for this. And you want to make it as big as you can. And now we're going to take the butter, place it on the dough. Again, spread it around evenly. And once again, you're going to be using your hands a lot. Now, we're putting the butter on the top 2/3 of the dough, leaving this part unbuttered. But it will get buttered, don't worry. So we take this bottom part, stretch it out a bit, fold it up and over, press it down. This is just like you were folding a business letter. Bring it again. And now we're going to switch back to our breadboard. Now we're going to, using our rolling pin, we're going to roll this out. Again, as far as we can. And then let's fold it again. And now we're going to let the dough rest and rise for 2 hours, and then we will come back and do 2 more of the butter layers, and then we proceed to making the croissants. We are back after having the dough in the refrigerator for about 2 hours. It is now ready to have another 2 turns of the butter mechanism. So we will flour our board. And work the dough a bit. It is very stiff at the moment, and that's why it has to be sort of beaten into submission. And again, we're rolling it out. so that we'll be able to fold the dough and the butter into more layers. Alright, and we do our business envelope fold. Business letter, I mean. Alright, we're now going to let it rest for, say, 4 or 5 minutes, and then we will come back and do the final roll of the dough and butter. We'll be back in 5. Alright, we've let the dough sit for 5 or 10 minutes. It makes it easier to roll out. So we will flour the board and roll this out once again. And remember, the point of all this is to make those 512 layers of butter and dough. I'm sorry, 55, not 512. It seems like it's working 512, but it's only going to be 55 layers. Now let's just give it a little this way. And we will fold it once again. And put it back in the bowl. And let it sit for another hour and a half. We'll be back. All right, we have finished the butter and the dough incorporation. We've let the dough sit for an hour and a half. I have prepared a pan, lightly buttered, to hold the croissant while they have their final rise. And now we're about to enter into the somewhat tricky problem of making the croissant themselves. So we'll take out the dough, again, flour the board to make it work, and then we're going to divide this one big hunk into 3 pieces. And each of the pieces is going to be rolled out, or beaten out into a long rectangle. And you can always use your hand to stretch it a bit. And now we want to create simply because I have one, we will use this magic ingredient just to show you that I have it. It makes all these perfect triangles out of which we make the croissant. Now we'll make the croissant themselves. Take the long edge, pull it, roll it forward, pull the top so we get a nice, and then put it on the pan, form a crescent, and we'll do it again. Pull the dough, stretch it out, repeat. Now when you put it in the pan, it's good to have that seal on the bottom so that it will help it rise properly. All right, let's do another one. Once again, we want to roll out a nice long rectangle. And again, you can use your hands as well as the roller to get it all the way out. Push it down hard, right through to the end. Pick up the scraps and we'll use them again. And now we have the makings of 5 more croissants. And these are going to be nice big ones. The story is that when Napoleon was retreating from Russia, he needed something special, and his chef came up with croissant. True or not, I don't know, but that's what they say. Now we'll do the same thing for the last of these pieces. Now, I don't expect many people are going to have the magic croissant instrument, so I'll show you how we do it without one. Just make a series of triangles. And fold them up once again. Depending on the size of the pan you have, you may have to use 2 pans, but this one is going to hold it. And we'll just do the last of them, and they're just going to fit in the pan. This is the scraps that we had from one of the earlier rolls. We'll make 2 triangles out of it. The dough is getting a bit sticky, and that probably suggests the dough is a bit too warm. All right, now we're going to cover them and let them sit for another hour and a half, and then we will be into the baking pot. We'll be back. All right, we've made the croissant. They have been rising for the last hour or so, and they look ready to go. So we will prepare an egg wash, which is an egg and a splash of water, and then I should mention that one of these is very handy, and every kitchen needs at least one. Alright, I have already preheated the oven to 475 degrees. We do need a hot oven to make this last step work. I can put them in without gloves, but taking them out will require gloves. Here we go. 15 minutes, and we'll be back to take a check. Alright, there's the bell. Let's take a look and see if they look ready. And they do indeed. So we will carefully take them out of the very hot oven. And here is a masterful pan of perfectly done croissant.